Hello and welcome to another wilderness tamed video, and in this one we're talking about pests and their control. Looking out there now, I can't imagine there's a lot going on really because of the temperatures and the snow. So pests. Obviously this weather is great because it does kill a lot of pests that haven't sheltered themselves very well, but also sadly it kills a lot of the predators as well. Now I'm not going to touch here on fungal or viral diseases of plants. We're going to concentrate mainly on the invertebrate pests, the root nibblers, stem suckers and the leaf munchers. So it's all like the maggots, beetles and larvae, caterpillars of various insects. Again, going back to exotic versus native, the exotic stuff seemed to get hammered by various pests. Native stuff tends not to be that affected, and if it is, it's not that noticeable. Certainly in a wildflower lawn or wildflower meadow situation, you're really not going to notice the damage that slugs and snails are doing. Things like aphids. I mean, I get on the red campion image quite badly hit by black aphids, but I've got that many of them that it doesn't really bother me, and there's loads of stuff comes into the garden to eat black aphids, like blue tits, great tits, wrens and robins and things. The frogs, other insects like ladybirds, lacewings. So I'm relying now, because my garden is less of a garden and more of a habitat, I'm relying now on an influx of natural controls in the forms of various predators, like some of the ones I've just listed. And as you'll know, again, for the videos, I'm fond of ponds, and ponds are full of predators. So there's all kinds of pond-based invertebrate predators, like pond skaters, diving beetles, dragonfly larvae, damselfly larvae. But coming in and out of the pond are frogs, toads and newts, which are great. They'll wander around in the evenings or out of breeding season and just demolish a whole host of invertebrate pests. But in the buds of some plants you'll get small aphids sort of harbouring, overwintering, tucked tight into buds and things. Little birds will come along and pick them out. Great source of winter food. Again, my neighbours either side put out feeders for the birds, with like nuts and seeds and various things. I don't have to do that because I've created a habitat in which the birds can forage in a more natural way for insects. And obviously again, native plants produce native seeds that native birds will eat. So I don't have to go to the expense of buying peanuts and Niger seed and millet and fat balls and all this sort of nonsense, or dried mealworms. I've got a garden full of natural food sources. So pests will attack, or a variety of pests will attack the plant from the roots, through the stems, to the leaves and the flower buds. Okay, so below ground you've got a whole host of things that are going to attack the plant at the root system and right in the base of the crown as well. Now notorious for these are, and these aren't even native, vine weevil. Now, vine weevil came to the UK via imported plants from continental Europe. They were brought in pot plants, bare root plants that were put in people's gardens, and then the eggs or the grubs ventured forth, and the adult beetles as well wandered about, and now they've pretty much taken over the country. So the grubs, which are little white, sort of ½ centimetre long grub, chubby body with a little brown head, they will just chew away through the roots of things like clematis, and a lot of primula they go for as well. I believe they'll attack rhodos as well, rhododendron. The adults will certainly nibble the leaves of quite tough evergreen plants like viburnum, tinus, rhodies and azaleas and skimmias and things like that. But there are other underground pests in gardens if you're fond of your lawn and you like your stripes and things. Chafer grubs and leather jackets are classic turf pests. And now the chafer grub is the larvae form of the sun chafer or cockchafer beetles. Quite a hefty beast, several sort of centimetres long, very chunky, white-bodied, 6 legs at the front end, and a brown head with quite big sort of pincers. And they just chew their way through turf roots. And you'll see, if you get a heavy infestation, you'll see the grass sort of dying in patches. I've never seen like really badly damaged turf from chafer grubs or from leather jackets, which do the same thing. So the leather jacket is a grey, slender-bodied grub, and it's the larvae of the crane fly, commonly called the daddy longlegs. Not to be confused with harvestmen, which are also called daddy longlegs, but they're a predator, and they roam about in the grass, grabbing little bugs and grubs and things. So that's the kind of stuff that's going on underground. If you're growing vegetables, you'll get things like wireworm, and essentially they look like mealworms that you would buy as a bird food, and eelworms and all kinds of other stuff that just eats through the roots of various vegetables. Obviously there's things like carrot root fly and onion fly. They lay their eggs on the plant, and then the grub burrows its way through your prize vegetables. Then we get above ground, and you're looking at the things that bore into the stems and trunks of shrubs and trees and plants. Other versions of that will attack sort of stems and leaves. So there's leaf miner grubs that are like the larval form of various micro wasps and micro beetles and things, and they're so small that they're actually in the cells of leaves. So leaves aren't thick, are they? Really, let's be honest. But you'll see the little sort of trails, almost like slug trails, going through the insides of leaves, and it's just these little larval grubs that are mining their way through leaves, and an infestation of those can destroy a plant. Then there's the things that just suck the sap, so aphids, scale insects, mealybugs, woolly aphids. They will just gather in clusters. You'll have seen them, green flies, black flies, and they'll just pierce the stem or the leaves and suck out the sap. What else did I mention? Oh, the leaf munching things. So that's like your bog standard caterpillars and beetles and slugs and snails that just crawl onto the plant and just chew away chunks and holes out of the leaves. So again, if you're growing vegetables, your brassicas will be affected by is it flea beetles they call them? Just various members of the white butterfly families. So they're the munching insects. So you get two types, the root munchers and the leaf munchers and the stem munchers. I think I've got some footage I can overlay onto this of sawfly larvae eating the leaves of Solomon seal. These caterpillars are on the leaves of a Solomon seal. And as you can see, they're doing quite a bit of damage. So there's quite an infestation here, and it's a common thing on Solomon seal. But it is something that only occurs after the plants have flowered and when they're in their sort of later stretch of life. And as you can see from this border, they're mixed in with lots of other taller perennials, so it's not that noticeable until you actually peer in there. We've got the ferns here, which again, nothing seems to touch ferns. I've not noticed any that look parasitised in any way. But, and the loosestrife, again, no signs of damage to that. A lot of these insects are very specific with their host plants, their food plants. Here's a picture of a rosebud covered in aphids. So again, some flowers can be affected by various pest infestations in that the pests will draw so much nutrient and energy from the plant that the flowers themselves will suffer. So how do we combat this? Well, as I've mentioned, how you garden or the style of garden you have can affect the sort of influx of predators. So me having a very natural garden, which is again like a mini habitat, like a sort of small nature reserve, it balances out. There are enough predators to counteract the effects of any of the pests, and now I am no longer bothered by any pests coming into the garden. I mean, I've got Solomon seal, and I've got the campion that I mentioned. What else? A native shrub, Viburnum opulus. The leaves pretty much disappear on those from various sawfly infestations. But it's okay. I get the flowers and I get the fruits, which is mainly what they're grown for. The flowers benefit pollinating insects, and the fruits benefit the birds. So it's no biggie, really. And again, the sawflies themselves, the larvae, the little grey caterpillars, they're a food supply for various birds that come to the garden. So it all takes care of itself, really. The whole point of encouraging you to garden or steer your gardening more towards wildlife is that you then have less to do. I no longer go around the garden checking for pests and wondering what to do about controlling them. I don't use any sprays, any chemicals, certainly don't use pellets for slugs and snails. Slugs and snails are out there in force. If I go out at night with a torch, the place is lifting with slugs and snails. But again, because essentially it's a wildflower meadow, I don't see any damage. Oh, I couldn't tell you what they're eating. Well, I mean, they're eating stuff, lots of stuff, but you can't notice it. It's not like it was when I had hostas, or like it is on the allotment. I do, sort of struggle on the allotment with slugs and snails. The best slug control in the UK is a native reptile that specialises in slugs. I'd say 90% of its diet is slugs. So if you can attract them into your garden and keep them there, which is easy, you're doing a good thing. And the beauty about this lizard is they can live for over 30 years. That's right. A lizard that lives for over 30 years and pretty much does nothing but eat slugs. What's not to like? I'm talking, of course, about Anguis fragilis, the slow worm, or blind worm as they used to be called. They're neither. If they're warmed up enough, they're pretty nifty, and they're not blind. Often mistaken for being a snake because they're legless. They've evolved to live underground, and let's be honest, you don't have to run particularly quick in order to catch slugs. But if you get one in the hand and look closely at it, they can blink. They've got eyelids like most other lizards have, whereas snakes don't blink, which I've always thought would be a good name for a band. So they're a reptile, so they like warmth, like me, and shelter. They're very prone to being killed by cats, unfortunately. So if you're in an area where there's lots of cats, start out by trapping and killing the cats. I can't believe I just said that on YouTube. Now, just discourage cats from your garden and provide the slow worms with some shelter. So a log pile, stone pile, corrugated tin sheet or two in the garden on a thick bed of vegetation, and in the sun, in a sunny spot. They'll love that. And what else gathers under, log piles, stone piles and tin sheets? Slugs. So they don't even have to come out. They just have their dinner arrive on the doorstep, literally. So yes, slow worms are amazing. The best natural slug predator in the UK. It is illegal to remove them from the wild, but it's amazing how widespread they are. But they're very, very secretive. I've known people live in areas that have good populations of slow worms, but they had no idea because they've never seen one. They're very, very secretive animals. Again, they're fossorial, which means they live underground. They've adapted to this sort of subterranean lifestyle almost, that they rummage around in undergrowth, dense undergrowth, and spend their time in the shelter of thick vegetation, piles of leaf mould. Compost heaps are great for slow worms because of the warmth and the food supply again. And just create the habitat for them, and with any luck they'll turn up and like it, and they'll stay and they'll work in your favour. As I mentioned before, having ponds is marvellous. You don't have to have a pond. If you've got kids and you're worried about a pond, then you want to reevaluate that, because there's nothing kids like more than ponds. Have a look at my frequently asked questions page on the website, wildernesstamed.com. It deals with that very subject. But amphibians wander around terrestrially. That's what amphibians do. They only go into the water to breed, and then they come out and wander about and hibernate, generally on land. So in doing that, they're rummaging about in your garden, gathering up pests. Yeah. So leave them be, leave them to it. They're doing a grand job. A lot of birds do the same. Thrushes, blackbirds, great at dispatching slugs and snails. As I mentioned, a lot of the sort of insectivorous birds, wrens, robins, the tits, what else? Other ones will look after your pest problem for you. And then of course there's all the predatory insects, spiders. Don't get rid of spiders. So look at this little beauty. A genuine false widow spider. Just found it in a timber stack. No markings on her. She's a beaut. Come on, sweetie. Come. Yeah, oh, not focusing very well. But yeah, what a smart beast. Now, this is amazing. To think that a few years ago, I had an absolute crippling phobia of spiders and would never have dreamt of putting anything like that on my hands and just letting it roam free. But this is gorgeous. Such a unique thing. I'll let it go. Actually, I might have to save her because I'm going to be shifting this timber again. How cool is she? Amazing. And apparently they can give quite a nasty bite. I didn't know, but then I wasn't doing it any harm, so probably didn't feel threatened. A few years ago, I could never have done that. Ridiculous notion. So anyway, yeah, spiders, brilliant. Get rid of loads of stuff. People hear wasps. Wasps are amazing predators. I know when they get to the autumn, they get a little bit tetchy and aggressive, but there's a reason for that. But in the meantime, spring and summer, wasps, amazing, brilliant. They'll go through loads of unpleasant insects and pests. So don't be dissing on wasps. Now, so why are they such a pain in the backside when it comes to autumn? Well, okay, let's ask you a question. How would you feel if you had been made redundant and homeless pretty much all in the same day? The Queen will shut down the hive and, or the nest. It's nest, isn't it? Wasps. Nobody farms wasps, do they? But yeah, so they essentially get chucked out of the hive, and so they're out of work and out of the house. So yeah, they're going to get a little bit touchy, and they do what a lot of humans do when misery strikes. They hit the bottle. So they go out and find some ripe fruit and get absolutely hammered, and then just start looking for a fight. So we've all met people who've done that, who are like that. Yeah. So don't give them too hard a time. They've just gone through a really rough patch, and they're about to die anyway. So, God, that's essentially a bit of a rubbish life. But prior to that moment, they've actually done a lot of good. So let's give a little bit more leeway to wasps, shall we? Okay, hoverflies. Hoverflies are very good, easy to attract to the garden. Just grow stuff that flowers. They'll come and pollinated, and if there's any pests, they lay their eggs, and their little wobbly-bodied larvae will run amok and eat up all the pests. Ladybirds the same. Who doesn't like ladybirds? Apart from those harlequin ones, they're a bit of a menace. But yeah, native ladybirds. Build a bug hotel. Great fun to do with the kids. Again, a sunny spot in the garden, bit of long grass around it, up against a fence or a wall, and bring in some ladybirds. Lacewings, they'll appreciate a bug hotel to hibernate in and forage in. Quite an elegant, long green-bodied insect, about a centimetre long, but with like disproportionately large wings, very attractive. But they're a brilliant predator. Mainly aphids they'll go for, but they'll go for other stuff as well. Yeah. There's all kinds of solitary wasps that will parasitise aphids and mealybugs and scale insects. Yeah. So, I mean, again, they're the kind of things that just generally go unnoticed in a garden situation. So they're that small, and most people wouldn't know that they were a wasp. They just think it's a tiny fly. But again, they'll benefit from a bug hotel. or a log pile, so anything like that. It's just, it doesn't have to be elaborate. A bug hotel could literally be a pile of logs and twigs and grass and leaves stuck in a sunny corner of the garden. You don't have to build a box or scavenge loads of pallets and fill it with bricks and broken plant pots and canes and all that sort of stuff. I mean, yeah, you can make those look really nice, but it's not necessary. Shrews, never thought, small mammals. Your shrew will eat a lot of worms, but they'll go for beetles and wood lice and slugs and snails as well. Hedgehogs, they'll go for slugs and snails as well. I mean, they'll eat worms as well, and worms are good. But, so, yeah, that's it really. The one, yeah, I didn't mention this, the one thing I do use to try and limit the damage that the slugs do on the allotment is porridge oats. Just dried porridge oats. There we go. Sure you know what porridge oats look like. Now you're thinking, what do you do with them? Well, as mentioned before, slugs like to go under things to shelter. So if you put corrugated tin sheet, a paving slab, half a broken plant pot, anywhere where slugs would shelter that would be dry, scatter some porridge oats in there. Now, this gets a bit grim. I'll try and paint it in a sort of a nice way. The slugs will eat the porridge oats. Now, if you've ever had porridge, you'll know how filling they can be. Yeah? You see where I'm going with this? But I've never eaten porridge oats dry. Can't imagine it's that much fun. But imagine eating like a bowl full of dry porridge oats. What are they going to do inside you? Yeah, you get the picture. But at least the slugs die fat and happy, and they're not full of toxins, like the pellets. Okay, please just stop using slug pellets. Porridge oats, toxin free. They'll swell up inside the slug, which just peacefully goes to sleep. Okay? Anything that comes along and eats the slug, be it a bird, small mammal, an amphibian or a reptile, is then not going to be affected. It's just having an easy meal. The porridge oats have already swollen up, so they're not going to swell up again inside the predator and have the same effect on the predator as they've had on the slug. Yeah? There's no toxins there, so there's no problem. To be honest, most amphibians and reptiles aren't going to eat dead slugs anyway. They've got to have movement associated with the prey. But essentially, if you create a mini ecosystem, it will balance out. And I talk about that a lot in other videos. It's a key thing. It's all about balance. A whole garden, a whole environment, a whole habitat is going to thrive if it is balanced. And you take one thing, one key species out of the equation in a habitat, then there becomes an imbalance. Yeah? Which sadly is what humans are very good at doing, interfering. But plant up your garden, fill it with wildlife, wildflowers, native species, and you have a lot less work to do. I spend so much more time relaxing in my garden now than I used to. Yeah, honest. Honest to goodness. Anyway, I think that's about the end of it. So hopefully you will learn something from that, and hopefully it won't be another 3 weeks before I put out another video. I do intend to be a lot more proactive from now on. So subscribe, ding the bell, and enjoy yourself. Until the next time, happy gardening.